Namaste. Hello everyone. Welcome to Shal Gulhati, Shiva and Mysticism for another episode of Monday with Mahadev. In India, when somebody dies, he is either cremated or buried as per his ritual, and then 13 days later or 14 days later or even 4 days later, as the culture may have said, there is usually a prayer for the departed soul. And many of these prayer halls where people congregate are called Markandey Bhavan. Now, Bhavan means hall, but Markandey does not mean prayer. Markandey is the name of a person, a rishi. So, why are these called Markandey Bhavan? Thousands of years ago, in the clan of Rishi Bhrigu, there was a rishi called Markandeya. And Markandeya was a great follower and believer, a great bhakt of Lord Shiva. And he was not having any child, so he prayed to Shiva to give him a child. And Shiva came to him and said, "Yes, tathastu, so be it, but for some reasons known to me, you can either have a child who will be very intelligent, who will love God and live only 16 years, or then you can have a child who will live a long life but will be very ignorant and not fond of God or anything like that." So Markandeya, in all his wisdom, said, "I would rather have a son who, even if he lives 16 years, loves God and dives deep into his divinity." And so a child was born to them, and Markandeya named him Markandey, somewhat like his own name. Now, Markandey was very fond of Lord Shiva right from a very young age, and every day he would just go and pray to a shivling, and he knew all the prayers and he knew all the rituals, and he was very devoted and he was very intelligent, and he knew a lot about divinity, but he was not very worldly. He just kept himself immersed in the prayer of the shivling. And so life went on, and before anybody knew, 16 years had passed. So after 16 years had passed, Markandey was at his shivling as usual one morning, praying to it, and suddenly there was a flash, and there was a light, and all those dramatic things, and Markandey looked up momentarily from the shivling to see a very hideous looking guy, with a club in his hand and a noose in the other hand, and that man was very scary looking, and Markandey had never seen anybody like that, so he said, "Who are you?" And that man spoke very roughly and coarsely and said, "Your time is up. I am the angel of death." He was a Yamdut, which is somewhat like the hound of heaven, somewhat like the soldiers of heaven which have to get the soul back to heaven after their time on earth is up. But Markandey did not know any of that. All he knew was Shiva, his devotion to Shiva, his love for Shiva, his prayer to Shiva. So he said, "My time is up. What does that mean? I don't want to go anywhere. I want to be here with Lord Shiva." So the man said, No, you have to go." So Markandey said, "No, but I am very fond of Shiva, and Shiva is very fond of me. And he won't like this that you're taking me away from him." So the Yamdut said, "Everybody says that. Everybody says that. Everybody says they're close to Shiva, but I have to take you away." So a scuffle ensued, but Markandey held his ground. He said, "No, I am very fond of Shiva, and Shiva is going to come for me, and he's going to tell you this is not the right thing to do." Now, this Yamdut was, after all, an officer of a lower rank, so he thought maybe if the boy really knows Shiva, then I will be in a lot of trouble. So he went back from where he had come, and then there is the master of all these soldiers, who's called Yamraj, the king of the angels of death. And he reported the whole incident to him, and Yamraj was infuriated. He says, don't you know, everybody says they are fond of Shiva and Shiva is fond of them. You know, everyone says that when their time is up. Everyone remembers God at the deathbed. Let me go myself and get him. So Yamraj, the king of the angels of death himself, arrived at the scene, and Markandey had already forgotten about it and he was busy with his prayer. So Yamraj was even more hideous looking, big moustaches and big muscles and hair everywhere, and he had even a bigger club and a more coarse noose, and he said, come, your time is up, Markandey. I have to take you away. He says, take me away where? He says, away from this world. You have to die. Your time is up in this world. So Markandey repeated, he says, I don't want to go anywhere. I just want to be with Shiva, with my Shivling. And I know Shiva, and Shiva is very fond of me, and that's all I do. So Yamraj said the same thing. He said, oh, everybody says that they know God and God is fond of them. I'm going to take you away. So he put the noose on the boy, and in the process, a part of the noose fell onto the Shivling. You see, Markandey was hugging on to the Shivling, and the noose went around him and the Shivling, and Yamraj is extremely strong. So he started tugging at it. And when he started tugging at the Shivling, and with Markandey crying, Shiva, help me, Shiva, help me, Shiva, who was sitting in Kailash, heard, and he was infuriated. And he reached the scene, and he said, what's going on here? So Yamraj said, hello, sir. You know, this boy, his time is up, and I've come to take him away, and he says he knows you. So Shiva said, yes, he knows me. He's one of my best disciples, and I think you can let him go. Because Shiva was very taken in by the whole scene, and plus there was a personal affront. You know, the noose had gone around him and his devotee. So Yamraj said, but you yourself had ordained, you know, that at 16 years this boy has to go. So Shiva said, well, that may have been, but I've changed my mind, and I hereby order you to release him, because I'm so pleased with his devotion. Even in the face of death, even in the face of Yamraj himself, the boy insists that he's my devotee, so this is the kind of devotion one should have, and he's steeped in his God consciousness, so leave him. Now surprisingly, Yamraj, I don't know what happened to his mind. He said no to Shiva. He said, no, sir, an order is an order, and you had ordered for this to happen, and if so it is written, and so shall it be done. So Shiva and Yamraj actually got into a duel. And the legend is that Shiva kicked Yamraj, the god of death, almost to death itself. And then Yamraj, you know, prayed for his own life. So Shiva said, you release them, I release you. So Yamraj said, all right, I release him, because even death wants life. And that is how Markandey, who was supposed to live only 16 years, lived many, many years thereafter. And in that hope that our souls are eternal, we call these prayer halls Markandey Bhavan. But it would be so much nicer that we do not only remember this story when we go to the prayer hall, but remember this always in every action of our life. To try to be a bit like Markandey ourselves, to be steeped in our God consciousness, to be with Shiva all the time, and when our time comes, it may not be as dramatic as this, but with God everything is possible. I will leave you with that thought. Om Namah Shivaya.